hello, my crafty friends. Well, today I have a fun little technique that I want to share with you for creating a floating focal point for your cards. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 4 different card ideas I want to share with you, which feature this little floating element or floating focal point for the card. And I have 2 different ways that you can use this technique in your card making, but there's plenty more than just 2 ways. But this will help get you started. Now, the cards in this video feature the Autumn Leaves bundle from Stampin' Up. And I will also be using some of the new deckled circle dies from Stampin' Up. So I'll be using 2 different sizes. There's a variety of different sizes here in this particular die set. But for today's cards, I'm just going to be using the 4 and 3 inch dies from this set. All right, so let me show you how to do this technique. Okay, so the first way that you can use this technique in your card making is simply to cut the same size strips of paper. So you can use designer paper like I did here, or you can just use regular cardstock like I did over here. So either way would be just fine. I recommend using up scraps. This is a great way to use up your scrap papers. So I'm going to show you how I made this particular card. We're going to use the designer paper for this one. So the first thing I did is just choose some designer paper. I'm using some of the All About Autumn designer series paper. This will work with any designer paper that you have on hand. And I just chose 3 different patterns. And each of these pieces are 3/8 of an inch wide. You can cut them at any width that you want. And I'll show you that with the next card. But for this one, I just made them all the same size. But the key to this technique is the acetate paper. So I don't know if you can see this. Let's lay it on a card front here. So this acetate paper is like transparency paper. And this piece I just cut at 3.5 by 4 inches. And basically what you want to do is just cut a piece of acetate that is just large enough for your die so that your die doesn't hang off, that it's within the acetate. So that's what you want to start with. You want to start with your die. I'm going to use this smaller circle die. So let's move this card out of the way. So I'm just going to take my acetate. You probably can't see it very well. Maybe you can see a reflection. And what I'm going to do is just arrange these so that they are alternating in color. So we're just going to start with the copper clay and then the wood grain and then the pretty peacock. And we're just going to alternate these colors, and then we're going to adhere them. So I recommend adding some tear and tape to the back of the pieces. You can use liquid glue, but the liquid glue tends to kind of smudge, and it's a little difficult to adhere to this acetate paper. So I'm going to start at the top. And I'm just going to work my way down. So I'm just going to adhere this all the way across. And then we'll add the next piece. So basically, as I add these pieces, I want to leave just a little bit of space in between so that you can see the acetate paper in between each piece. So basically I have all the pieces adhered to this piece of transparency paper, and I just left a little space in between. It doesn't have to be perfect. No one's going to really notice if they're exactly spaced. And then what I'm going to do is just cut off these excess pieces off the edge. You don't have to do this, but I recommend it because when you send this through your embossing machine to cut out the circle shape, all these little pieces here have sticky stuff on it, so it'll all stick to your embossing machine. So just snip these off, and then we will run this through our embossing machine. Okay, so I ran this through the embossing machine, so now I could just peel this acetate off. And then we're left with this fun little die cut shape that we can use as a focal point on our card. And I recommend also saving this piece. I'll show you what I did with this piece after we create the card. So for this card, I started with a piece of early espresso cardstock for the base of the card. And then I just cut a 3 3/4 by 5-inch piece of very vanilla cardstock, and I embossed it with the Distressed Tile 3D embossing folder. You can use any embossing folder you have on hand. And we'll just adhere this right to the center of the card front. And then our focal point is just going to get popped up on the front of the card. So I need to add some dimensionals on the back. And basically how you do this is you're going to add your dimensionals right across the strips. So I'm going to add probably quite a few dimensionals because I want my focal point to be a little more sturdy or a little more firm. But you can add as many as you want. I'm using just some little mini dimensionals. So I'm going to finish adding all these dimensionals and then we will put our card together. Okay, so once you have all of your dimensionals added to the back, then you're just going to add this to your card front. And I just kind of put mine right in the center. Then you can add any kind of greetings or decorations that you want to. I'm just going to add a little greeting here that I did some heat embossing on. So this is just early espresso cardstock, and I just did a little heat embossing, and I'm going to put this off to the side here. And then I'm just going to add a little leaf. I'm going to add a little bit of glue, and I have a dimensional on the area that is going to hang off of this little floating frame here. And that's really it. So it's kind of a fun little technique. And then on the inside of the card, I actually took this leftover piece here and I just ran this through my paper trimmer and just cut this off. So actually I'll show you what I did. So you just put this in your paper trimmer and then you want to make sure that you cut off those jagged edges there. So now I have a fun little strip that I can use to decorate the inside of the card. So I made use of just about everything I could with this little die cutting technique. Okay, so now you know how to do this one. You could, like I said, you can use any size circle that you want. This is the designer paper one. Here's the one I did with just cardstock. This one has copper clay, crushed curry, and old olive cardstock, and then I just used the early espresso to decorate it. Just did some embossing on a piece of vanilla cardstock. And then on the inside, I again saved that strip and put it on the inside just to kind of decorate the inside of this card. All right, so for the second card idea, this one I used a much larger circle. So this circle shape is about a 4-inch in diameter circle shape. And this time I off-centered it a little bit. So I off-centered the circle and then just trimmed off the excess here. So I'm going to show you how I made this card. It's very similar to the last one, except for I started with a larger piece of acetate. So I have a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch piece of acetate. So this time I have a variety of different size strips, and I already have my tear and tape on there. But basically I cut a 1/2 inch wide and then a 3/8 inch wide and a 1/4 inch wide. So I have varying sizes, you know, as far as the width of my paper goes. So I did that with all 3 colors. Whereas in the last one, I only used one size. I used the 3/8 inch size to create the last card. So like I said, there's just a variety of different things that you can do with this particular technique. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere all these pieces, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so this is what it looks like when I adhere all my pieces, and then I just take the larger circle shape and just lay it across here, and I will run this through the embossing machine and cut this circle shape out. But what I wanted you to notice about this particular design is that I rotated the different sizes. So I don't have any of the 1/4 inch pieces next to each other. So like this is a 1/4 inch, this one, and down here. So I kind of made sure that as I was adhering them, that I was rotating the different colors and that I was rotating the different sizes so that I didn't have two of the same size next to each other. All right, I'm going to cut this out and I'll be right back. All right, so I finished cutting out the shape and this is what it looks like. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to add the dimensionals again on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then I will be right back. All right, so now I have all the dimensionals on here and I left some off of this side. And that's because that part is going to hang off the edge of the card. So I didn't want to add too many dimensionals on this side so that I didn't have to cut all those off. So we are going to add this right about here. And we'll have it hang off the edge. And then we can flip this over. And we can just trim this. And if you have a larger scissors, that works well. I have my little paper snips here, but that'll work just fine too. And so now you have just kind of a different look for your card. I thought it was just kind of a fun look. And then this time I just stamped a little greeting on a piece of vanilla cardstock. And then I just cut it out with one of the dies from the Autumn Leaves stamp set. And so this is just stamped in Early Espresso. So we'll just add this, let's see, we'll go right about here, I think is where I went. So I just added a couple dimensionals to this little leaf and then just popped it up on the card. And then I added some twine just to kind of decorate it a little bit more and some of those rustic metallic dots. And on the inside, I actually used the same colors to decorate the inside. So you can cut different size strips like I did here. So it's the 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch, and then a 1/4 inch just to kind of decorate the inside of the card. Kind of looks retro, kind of looks 70-ish, right? All right, so that is the second way that you can use this technique. And I'm just going to bring in the other card right away too. So for this card, I just changed the layout a little bit and use designer paper. So basically the concept is the same. And like I said, you can use any shape. You can use any size circle and you can use any shape with this particular technique. Okay, so there you go. Now you have two different ways that you can use the floating focal point technique in your card making. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.